Day and good morning. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Guam Chamber of Commerce webinar series. My name is Catherine Castro and I'm pleased to welcome you today. And you are in the right place if you are looking for understanding your business's options for COVID-19 relief. Our speakers today are from the Guam Small Business Development Center and the SBA's Guam branch office. And leading today's presentation is Ms. Jane Ray, Senior Business Advisor for the Guam SBDC, and Mr. Fred Granillo, Center SBDC Director and Advisor. And joining us later will be Mr. Ken Lujan, Branch Manager, U.S. Small Business Administration Guam Office. So a little bit of housekeeping. As you are probably aware, all of our participants are on mute during the presentation. And you have had an opportunity before the webinar began to send questions to Rebecca from the Guam Chamber of Commerce. If new questions come up as the presentation is ongoing, please feel free to utilize your question feature, which is located at the right corner of your screen. And the Chamber team will pass the messages to our speaker during the Q&A portion of the program. So I guess we're ready to get started, and I'm happy to pass this on to Ms. Jane Ray. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you so much, Ms. Catherine. Thank you for hosting this webinar for our small business on Guam. This is a very important training that we would like to talk about the SBA financing option that they are providing for the small business, for some financial assistance. Before I start, I'm going, Ms. Rebecca, can I have you do the next slide? So just as a reminder, please remember, if you do have any question, please do not share your individual personal situation on those questions. If you need help and you have a unique situation, I am putting this contact information for Guam SBDC, as well as the SBA Guam office contact number and email. You can email those in the question to us, and you can contact us from there. Me and Fred will be able, and as well as Angel, we're going to talk about all the advisors that we have. We'll be able to be there to assist you moving forward. To give you a little bit general idea as to what Guam SBDC is that Guam Small Business Development Center is actually a part of an association of small business development center all over the U.S. We have 1,100 centers in the United States, also in the territory as well. So for the Guam SBDC, we are part of the Pacific Island Small Business Development Center Network. We have 7 centers in the Pacific. We have 1 on Guam. We have Sinamai. We have Palau. We also have center in the FSM. We just recently started the Ponape Center. So if you do have business out in the island and you need help, you're more than welcome to contact those centers. The information to contact our individual center is on our website under pacificsbdc.com. Next, please. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our network director, Mr. Fred Granillo. He recently rejoined us at the Guam SBDC just, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago. But he actually is not a newcomer into this center. He has worked for us in the past. He's actually have extensive experiences in taxation, in accounting, also in banking as well. So please welcome him, Mr. Fred. He will be taking on the first part of the presentation for SB Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. We also call it EIDL. Fred?
Thank you, Jane. And thank you, Catherine and the Chamber for welcoming us and giving us this opportunity to communicate to the business community out there what the status of these disaster loans made available through the Small Business Administration. So if you can kindly move to the next slide. Okay, I'm just going to talk about this economic injury disaster loan. This is one of the two main products that have been put out by the SBA, and it was started on January 31st, 2020, and is scheduled to be available all the way to December 31st, 2020. However, as we know, it's also subject to the dollars that are available for this. So as we know, the first round was already used up, and now the second round of money has been provided, and that's where we're at now. But they have not opened the portal yet. So before you start throwing the rocks and the eggs towards us and the SBA, just know that we are just waiting for the SBA to open the portal. And then, we're more than happy to assist you in doing that processing of those economic injury disaster loans. So what this one does, it provides the immediate economic relief to small businesses that have been affected by the COVID-19 disaster. So it's a very low interest loan. It's supposed to be only about 3.75 for most regular businesses. Now it's up to the SBA though to determine what your loan amount will be. You just put in the information on the online application and it'll determine what that's going to be. So before it's not going to give you that opportunity to put it in. So effectively, who is eligible for this EIDL? Yeah, sole proprietors, independent contractors, anyone who's essentially self-employed, and any private nonprofit or veteran organization. But you must, some of the limitations are you have to be less than 500 employees. But in certain industries, you could have more than that, but you have to go in line with the SBA has these size standards that they work with. So if you're above that, we would have to look to the SBA. They have a office that helps in ruling on that and can give clarity on if you could still qualify as a small business. Next slide, please. So what are the loan terms? The terms could be 7, 15, or up to 30 years. Depends on the factors, but once again, SBA will decide on that after they do their analysis. They have their own formula to determine the term and the loan amount, which is the next one, which is up to $2 million. So you have to just put in whatever the information is. Very basic information. It's only going to be like your revenues, some of your costs of goods, and your SS numbers, or your EIN numbers. So it's going to be up to them based on that information that you give them, what they're going to offer you as a loan. And then the interest rate, as I had noted before, will be 3.75 for just regular businesses, 2.75 for nonprofits. Collateral, it will be unsecured up to 25,000, but anything over, they will probably come back to you and say request for some collateral to see what you have available, and that could be in different forms. It would be up to them to determine what that would be. Of course, in many cases, they like tangible collateral like real estate, but we never know. We got to determine with the SBA what will satisfy them. If it's small enough, it may be even a UCC on covering assets, business assets. But I'm just saying there's other forms. There is a payment deferral, 1-year term. However, interest will continue to accrue. So they give you a break on the payment side before you actually have to start paying up. And there is no fee associated with getting this loan that's direct with the SBA. So next slide, please. So what could you use the funds for when you do receive the loan? Well, you could use it for working capital. So what is essentially working capital? Or essentially your operating expenses like payroll costs, inclusive of benefits such as healthcare. Accounts payable, which is like your vendors, your regular monthly vendors. Rent, your lease rents, any fixed debt obligations, any existing installment debts that you may have for the business, and any other bills that can't be paid that are associated with your regular operating expenses. Note, you cannot be used for refinancing existing debt. The SBA will not allow that to try to take their debt to be used to cover current debt. So just know that. So it does not cover lost sales or income either. So it's strictly to pay for what you have coming due, or what you have to have in terms of your current obligations. Next slide, please. So special feature, there is within it an emergency advance up to 10,000, but the way it works, it's based on the number of employees, and they'll give you $1,000 per employee. So effectively, in order to get the maximum of the 10,000 of the emergency advance, you'd have to have 10 employees. But so if you have anything less, 3 or 4, then you're only going to get that 3,000 or 4,000. So just be aware of that they had put that in as a limitation on that. And you must have been in operation, already an existing business as of January 31, 2020. So that means you should have a license, already stamped previous with that date that shows that you were in operation. So if your application is denied for whatever reason, you don't have to pay back the emergency advance. So the emergency advance is essentially a grant to the business owner. So you can keep that, and there are no, as far as we can see, they haven't put any strings attached to that money. So it's just strictly money you can keep. So even if you don't get the loan, they don't approve you for a loan, then you can just keep the money. And then you can proceed to use it for whatever you need on your business expenses, payroll, sick leave to employees, rent, fixed obligations, these kind of things that can't be paid due to the lack of cash flow. So next slide, please. So the place to apply is this site, the COVID-19relief.sba.gov. And you will know that it is open because the moment you clicked on that, you will see this page. Right now, if you click on this one, I just tried again this morning, just a short while ago, and it did not come up. So that means it's still kind of, they're still waiting to get it ready for the additional monies that have been put out. So right now it still has been closed. So hopefully it'll open soon, and then we'd be glad to assist you in any way in trying to complete this online application direct with SBA. So and once again, if you don't see this page, then you know that you won't be able to proceed going further in to start the application. If you see another page, it'll probably tell you that they've already appropriated all the funds from the first round. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back to Jane, and she will continue and give you a background on the rest of the available programs through the SBA under the CARES Act. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Fred. So just keep in mind for the EIDL2 as well, if you are going to a screen that looks different from the slide that we have shown, you are at the wrong place. Please do not put in, because there's a separate application portal for the other disaster assistance loan program. So please make sure you go to the link that we indicated. A copy of this PowerPoint will be sent over to you at the end of this broadcast. So let's go ahead and talk about this Paycheck Protection Program. I think a lot of you guys have taken advantage of it. For the first round of the funding, there's 508 businesses that took advantage of it. So it's a good amount of people that have been was approved. Keep in mind the average utilization rate for stateside, it's actually only 6%, but we are actually at 14.7%. That means that our small business is taking advantage of this program. So the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, started on March 13, 2020, and is supposed to be ending on June 30th, 2020. But keep in mind, because we have exhausted the money the first round, we are on the second round. Majority of the lenders on Guam, they are processing on the application that they received from that leftover from the first round. So they are still working on it if you submitted those PPP application, but check with your lender and make sure you follow up with them, making sure that they have all the documentation that they have. Keep in mind too, this PPP program is to help small business to put your employee back on payroll. It is not for refinancing. I have some people, oh, can I refinance my commercial loan that I have from the bank to this program? It is not for that. This is strictly is to stimulate economy to put people back to be employment. With this program, this is a little bit different from EIDL. With EIDL, you actually apply directly with SBA, Small Business Administration. With the PPP program, you have to work with the local SBA lenders. Here on Guam, we have a list of them. We're going to be showcasing in a little while, and I'll let you know who are those people that you can reach out to. The special incentive for this program is that if you were to use the PPP loan and you were able to hire back all the employee that you had before for 8 weeks, and you use the loan according to what is supposed to be, right? So at a minimum, you have to spend 75% of the loan proceed towards payroll. If you keep your employee employed, and that 75% requirement has been met, your loan forgiveness is going to be most likely approved by the banks. You can use the remaining 25% for non-payroll costs. So we're talking about rent, we're talking about utility, okay? So just keep in mind there's strict guideline as to how you use this fund. Please do not use funds to do things that you did not disclose, and neither you use it for things that you're not supposed to. It's very important that you have to be in compliance if you want your loan to be forgiven at a later time and determined by the bank. Next, please. Okay, so for the PPP program, what some of the qualification is that you have to definitely meet the SBA size standard. On the application form, it has to be indicated you have to have 500 or less employee. You can be a business. You can also be a nonprofit organization. So if you're one of those 501c3 entity, you can apply. Veterans organization and tribal business concern entity, you also qualify. So on the second round of funding, they also added aquaculture enterprises that can be included in this program. And also there's some new eligibility that they put through. If you have any question about that and you're wondering whether you qualify to apply for this program, contact us and then we can talk about that from there. Like I said, you have to hire no more than 500 employees. If you are in the industry for restaurant or hotel, under the NAICS code, NAICS code is basically your industry code. You can find that out online. If your industry code start with 72 and you don't have, if you have multiple locations and you hire less than 500 per location, you also are eligible. And to clarify also for PPP, sole proprietor, independent contractor, and self-employed individual is also qualified to apply for this program. Next, please. Okay, so keep in mind, the long term for the PPP is that the maximum maturity of PPP is 2 years. So you are going to have that 6-month deferral for the first 6 months. And then you will have the remaining 1.5 years to pay that loan off if the loan is not forgiven. But if your loan is forgiven, then you don't have to worry about it. The loan amount is calculated based on 250% of your average payroll cost from the past year. For sole proprietor, for independent contractor, they are calculated a little bit differently. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you need help, those information is on SBA website. It's also in the U.S. Treasury website as well. The interest rate for this program is 1% fixed rate for small business. So that's why I encourage a lot of small business to take advantage of this, because you cannot get any bank loan from any financial institution with a 1% fixed rate. There is no collateral and personal guarantee requirement, and there's no loan fees associated with the PPP program. So it's a great program to put your staff back on track, or put your business back on track too as well. The use of proceeds. So remember too, there's a very strict use of proceeds. You need to make sure you use it according to what is allowed. I have some individual that, oh, can I buy equipment? Can I buy inventory? That's not included in this PPP program. So please do not use the proceed towards that. The first use of proceed is including eligible payroll costs. So your eligible payroll cost is basically your salary and wages. If your small business actually have individual that make over 100,000 a year, you can only cap the salary at 100,000. Anything above that, they're gonna have to figure out on their own or get a pay cut, whichever way that make it happen. For some individual like restaurant, if they do tips as well, that can be included. Payment on vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave. If you're paying your staff for those, you can include those costs as part of the eligible payroll costs. Allowances for dismissal or separation, that's eligible. Your insurance benefit, if you pay your staff health insurance, those money that you pay toward it can be qualified. Any retirement benefit that you pay for your staff, that you can include it as well. And any payment for state and local taxes. Just keep in mind one thing that you cannot include is the employer version of the employer portion of the Social Security and Medicare. That is not to be included as part of their eligible payroll costs. Next, please. So the other eligible use of proceed is including interest on your mortgage, your fixed, your rent, and your utility. Keep in mind, for those who have applied already, you can only get one PPP loan per borrower. So you cannot say, oh, I'm done using this money, can I go borrow another one? No, it's only one per entity, okay? Next, please. So like I mentioned, there's some exclusion in calculating your payroll costs. Any compensation, you gotta make sure when you're doing the application, you need to certify that your employee is actually in the US. So if you have any compensation that pay for employee who principal place of residence is outside the US, you cannot include that. As I mentioned earlier, you can only cap your eligible payroll costs at 100,000. So anything over 100,000 for those individuals, you just need to find another way to pay them. Also, I mentioned that briefly earlier, your Social Security and Medicare that you pay for your employee from the employer portion, you cannot include that as eligible payroll costs. So please don't include it with the calculation. If you decided to take advantage of the latest qualified sick and family leave wages, if you're gonna be taking advantage of that tax credit, you cannot use that, that cannot be included as part of the eligible payroll costs. So be very careful when you're gonna go back to the bank and ask for forgiveness, these are the items that you cannot include, okay? Next, please. So now, if you do decide that, you know what, I'm ready, I want to apply for this PPP program, and I think I'm going to be okay using this, I'm giving you guys the link to download the loan application form. You can use the SBA loan. Most financial institutions actually are using the SBA form. In addition to the application form, you will need to provide payroll information documentation. So such as your 941, your quarterly tax return, your W3SS, your 1099 information to support your payroll calculation. They are asking for 2019. If you don't have 2019, or if you have an incomplete year, you can give them whatever you can give. Keep in mind, there's also other documentation the bank might ask for. This is pertaining to just making sure that you just verifying your business entity, verifying that you actually are the individual that can borrow on behalf of the business. So don't feel that you're overwhelmed by all the documentation. It's very simple and straightforward. And like I said, we can help you if you need help trying to put this all together. Keep in mind, each lender gonna have required a different documentation. Please contact your SBA lender to find out. Okay, so depending on the situation, depending what the loan officer, when they review the application, what's missing, they might ask for more things. So, you know, for me, give them what they need to make sure that they are complete so that your loan can be at the front of the line. The more complete you are, the faster your application is going to move forward. That's one of the tips that I can give to small business when they're applying for loan. Missing document will delay the process. So you want to make sure that whatever that they need, just give it to them so that they can move this as quickly as possible. Keep in mind too, this is a first come, first serve basis. The longer you take to get back to your bank, the longer process is going to be. And we want to make sure that you are able to take advantage of this program. So if you can put prioritization, if a bank needs something, make sure that you satisfy those requirements as soon as possible, okay? That's my tips for you. Okay, next, please. So in addition to the EIDL and the PPP program that SBA Small Business Administration offer, they also have what's called a Small Business Debt Relief Program. What it is that this program is started to support the survival or reopening of the business. So this debt relief program applies to all the existing SBA loans that are in the banks. It could be your SBA 7A loan program. It could be your 504 program loan. It could be your micro loan. So if you're not sure whether your loan qualifies, check with the bank that you have the loan with. Find out if that's an SBA loan. If it is, you're going to be able to get a 6-month deferral. But keep in mind, as a financial advisor, as a personal credit counselor, I would not recommend, you know, just deferral is good. But if you can afford to pay some of the interest that are accruing, try to make those payments. You know, whatever that you can give, just give it to them. If not, then you have up to 6 months not to pay. But one of the qualifications for this small business debt relief program is that in order for you to qualify, your loan has to be in regular servicing status. So if you're not sure, check with your lender, making sure your loan was in regular servicing status. If it is, then this debt relief is automatic. So you don't have to worry about making the payment for the next 6 months. It is automatic deferment until December 31st, 2020. You can continue making regular payment and apply. The payment will be applied normally to your loan account. You don't have to take advantage of that if you don't want, but if you need because you're struggling, take advantage of it if you need to. For those who set up automatic payment for your SB, your loan that you have right now, if you have already set up your automatic payment, you need to make sure that you pause that payment. It is not automatic on that part of it. If you are one of those that you decided to stop the automatic payment, you're gonna make sure that you need to set that back up at the end of the deferral period. So those payments that were set up for automatic transfer, it's not gonna stop just because SBA defer your loans. So you need to make sure that you check with your financial institution to make sure that your automatic payment have paused or stopped. And then you need to restart it at the end of the deferral period. Next, please. Okay. So there's also another, oh, Miss back, can we back one slide? You jump. Okay, wait, there was one after that. Okay, so the Express Loan Pilot Program is another SB loan program that is available for small business. It is to allow for small business to access quickly up to 25,000 with an SB Express lender. But keep in mind this loan can be used to cover operational expenses. It is, like I said, it's not to help you to refinance your existing loan or you use this for something else. It's a way to help you to facilitate your cash flow while you waiting for your EIDL application for processing. Just keep in mind, right now the EIDL application process is still ongoing. We can talk about that when I wrap up and where are they at right now. So the requirement for this is it will be repay in full, or it's going to be you're going to be repay from part of the loan proceed coming from EIDL. When this Express Loan Program is also one per borrower as well. Next, please. So the eligibility for this bridge loan program is that you have to be in operation before March 13. If you haven't started your business, you're not going to be able to qualify for this. They also have a SBA size standard as well, limitation here. You have to have less than 500 employees. This Express Bridge Loan Program, it's up to 7 years. It is not a line of credit. Keep that in mind. The interest rate for this loan pilot program is not to exceed prime plus 6.5% fixed or variable rate. The prime rate right now is at 3.25%. So the maximum the lender can charge you is at 9.75%. There's also guarantee fees associated with this loan program and some loan fees. So you need to inquire with your lender and see what kind of fees that they're going to charge you for this program. Next, please. Okay. So here's a listing of the SB lender that we have locally on Guam. We have ANC, we have Bank of Guam, we have Bank of Hawaii, Bank Pacific, Coast 360 Federal Credit Union, Community First, First Hainan Bank. So you need to kind of take a look and think about who do you bank with first. We always recommend it. No matter what kind of financing you're looking for, you always start with the bank that you bank with, because at the end of the day, they know your background, they know your information. So when you apply for when you apply for financing, they're gonna be able to assist you and review your record from there. So it's easier to start with the bank you bank with first. Next, please. So as a reminder, right, Guam SBDC is here to help you to get assistance. So our counseling is free. You don't have to pay for it. You can call us, you know, during working hours. Well, some client call us after working hour. We still help them too. But our counseling, like I said, is free. You can use us as much as you want. We also do training. We are moving our training to webinar moving forward. And until the end of the year, most of the training that we have is going to be free. We're going to restart our training. Our first training going to be on May 6th. The May 6th training is how to market your business. If you need help, because of the changing business model that is happening right now, please join us, and you need to register on our website. I put in the QR code on this slide, so all you need to do is to use your phone, take a picture of the QR code. It will take you to our site. We have 3 business advisors right now. We have Fred, me, also Angel Paulino that are here that can assist you. Next, please. So now I'll move forward to the Q&A section. And if you do have question, please make sure you send it through the chat box. If you didn't send it ahead to the chamber office already, let me take a look. Fred, can you get online?
I'm on.
Okay, so one thing I do wanted to answer, I know all of you have a lot of questions about how to follow up with EIDL. With the EIDL program, you need to contact the SBA disaster office. Okay, so everybody got your pen and your paper with you? The phone number to follow up for your economic injury disaster loan program, the phone number is 1-800-659-2955. Or you can email them. Let me repeat the phone number again. 1-800-659-2955. Or you can email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. So those are the 2 ways that you can follow up with the application you submitted. Just keep in mind, nobody on Guam gonna be able to tell you what the status is, but please contact those information. Okay, so let me take a look at the question that are in the chat box. Oh my Lord, there's a lot of questions. Okay, first question. Okay, it's on the bottom of your the attendee list there. Okay, I will read out the question, and then Fred, if you can try to answer. Okay.
Of course.
If we fill out the EIDL loan already, how do we follow up? I kind of addressed that already. Make sure you call the 1-800-659-2955 number, or email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Do we have to go through a bank for EIDL? No. EIDL is strictly going to the SBA Disaster Assistance Office. Okay, so to explain that process a little bit more further, is that what you submitted on that website that we showed earlier is your initial application. Okay, they gather those information, they give you the loan advances from there, but keep in mind, when it's the time for review, the loan officer from disaster office is going to get in contact with you. If they do need additional information, you need to make sure you have those information available and be able to give them those information quickly. So some of the information that they do ask, it could be the owner personal financial statement, your financial statement for last year, 2019, your scheduled liability. It could be a tax form, 4506. So, just be ready if they get in contact with you. Make sure you give those information as quickly as you can. Okay, and make sure you have those information available on hand as well. Okay, so that will be the next step. So when you submitted the application online, that's just the initial process. Okay, next question. If an employer received PPP funding, Fred, this is for you. Oh, let me also check, is Mr. Ken Lujan, are you online?
Yes,
I forgot
I'm online.
to check you. Okay, so maybe I'll save this question for you. If an employer received PPP funding, and pay out an employee using those funds, does it affect the pandemic unemployment assistance?
Does it affect the pandemic and unemployment assistance? To a
Yes.
certain degree, it would be, because again, the intention of the program is actually to ensure that we bring back the employees who were displaced back online and become employed. Now, the assumption out there that a lot of businesses are concerned about is that what if my employee doesn't want to come back? If you offer the job back to the employee, then they become willing, they become employed. But if they refuse to accept that position back again, then they voluntarily have now displaced themselves and became unemployed. They weren't laid off, they weren't furloughed. They just voluntarily laid themselves off. But I think that's more of a question that needs to be responded to by the Department of Labor, and they can get more clarity on that. But if you're offering them the opportunity to go back into their job because now you have the necessary funding to do so, then they have to have an excuse as to why they're not wanting to return. And then again, you have to deal with that with the labor department.
Yeah, so the second part of the question that also too, we understand that an employee can be paid up to 345, but if we pay them less, would it affect the eligibility? So a lot of people have that question. I can tell you guys that we've been in constant communication with Guam DOL. They haven't been able to answer the question first. So until then, this is a question that nobody can answer it as of this moment. But if you want to, you can contact Guam DOL. They are responsive via their email. Ask for the SOP, ask for the guidance as to see whether this is going to be affected. Also, one more thing that I probably forgot to cover when you're talking about the Paycheck Protection Program, you need to make sure that 75% of the loan used for payroll, right? And there's two additional factors that you need to make sure when you bring those employees back on board. You need to make sure that your average number of full-time employees stayed the same, as well as your total salary and wages level does not reduce by more than 25% of your total payroll. If you do, that will affect or that will reduce the loan forgiveness portion that you might be eligible for. So please make sure you are in compliance to those requirements. Fred, next question. PPP require that we hire all our employees by June 30th. Realistically, for our operation, we do not foresee actual physical work for our employee. Does simply ensure that they are paid no less than 25% of their regular rate to ensure they are able to pay insurance premium. Does this constitute rehiring them?
No, I don't believe that does. I think they want you to bring back the employee, the same number of employees at the same rate.
Yeah, Fred, let me see if I can answer this question here. The intent of the program is to bring back or protect the paycheck of the employee. If you're going to only protect a portion of the paycheck, then that's not the intent of the program. Therefore, the applicant should not apply. We have a lot of businesses out there that want to protect their payroll and protect their employees, and those are the ones that immediately need the assistance that's necessary. So if you're intending on hiring them in June or July timeframe, then this is probably not the program to apply for the PPP. I suggest that you apply for EIDL instead.
Okay, so to add on to that, right? Don't be open-minded. You know, at the end of the day, if you have a staff that are doing certain job and you have things that been put it in the back burner, right? Like, you know, those paperwork that you never want to get done and you needed help, have your staff be flexible, do other things that they might know. This is the time to encourage your staff to learn more, teach them more things that they can be doing. So don't have that mindset that, oh, this waiter can only do waitressing work. If you have the PPP program, use them. Hey, do you know about social media? Can you help me with marketing? Be flexible with that sort of maybe additional duty that they can help you to make sure you satisfy the requirement for PPP.
Yeah, a couple of suggestions that I've been making to companies who have called me in, and I said, if you have a situation, say for instance, a daycare center, obviously the parents are going to be kind of somewhat hesitant to submit their child to the daycare. So one of the suggestions I had made was that bring your staff in, for 8 weeks, start training them as to how to be cognizant about the hygiene and the conditions, how to protect yourself with, get OSHA's regulations, guidance on how to prevent COVID-19 within your workplace, and start changing your policies and procedures as to how you're handling things, and then at the same time too retrofitting your facility so that way you can adhere to the 6 feet provisions, and at the same time too give your employee the thought of having to be in a safe working conditions for them, so that way they won't have that fear coming in. So these are things that you can implement while you're waiting for more activities to take place. So you could still do a lot of things within an 8-week period of time. So kind of utilize it to the fullest.
Okay, next question. If there are any remaining unused balance from the PPP, would it be forgivable? Ken?
Remaining balance, first of all, a portion of it, if you're asking for, let's just say $20,000 for your employee's payroll for 8 weeks, and you don't use the full amount of the $20,000, then that's not going to be unforgiven. That's not going to be forgiven. There's going to be a portion of it that's not going to be forgiven. You must justify that you utilize the full monies at the same time too. They're looking at it right now in terms of, do we consider that to be a loan, or do we consider that to be a repayment back to the PPP program? So there are still changes coming about, and we'll keep you informed regarding that question.
Okay, and then next question. Because the EIDL has specific use, how will this be managed? Is this a reimbursement program? Must show a receipt or invoice to prove from SBA or bank. So this is directly with SBA. So Ken?
Yeah, we've had some questions about multiple draws, and the question could be can sum up to this. The question is, can a borrower take multiple draws for a PPP loan and thereby delay the start of the 8-week cover period? The answer is no. The lender must make a one-time full disbursement of the PPP loan within 10 calendar days of loan approval. So once you receive your money, they're going to give the full disbursement. They can't go there and give out multiple draws and say, I'm going to give you $10,000 now and $10,000 next month. They must disperse the full amount to you within 10 calendar days from the loan approval. And of course, the purpose of the loan has to be to its intended purpose, which is to cover payroll costs, rental payments, et cetera, that's allocated within the final rule, which is the regulations there.
How about Ken? How about for EIDL?
For EIDL, there could be some disbursements on there. Again, but it has to be a one-on-one discussion with the loan officer that they deal with once they are contacted.
Okay. Okay, next question. Does the EIDL and PPP apply for 501c6 on Guam?
501c6, those are nonprofit organizations, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yes.
In some cases,
Go ahead.
Can I interject? This is Catherine. My understanding, just from some of the readings that I've seen on U.S. Chamber, the U.S. Chamber has been trying to get Congress to accept the 501c6 programs. A lot of 501c6 groups have been left out of the fiscal support package. So there is still work trying to seek support for 501c6. So as of a few days ago when I last checked, this program is only open to 501c3s.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, you're correct, Catherine, saying that, as a matter of fact, there are two provisions that they're looking at in terms of the 501c or C6. One of it is that they not be operated by the government, and the second one is that they not be, majority become a lobbyist group in essence. So, if you are a 501c6 and you are government run and or a lobbyist group, then you probably won't be eligible for that program. And that's something that they're looking at too right now.
Okay. Next question, if we received the immediate 10,000, the loan advance from EIDL, when will we know if the EIDL loan was approved?
That's a very good question. Something I've been asking my my office too on a daily basis, even to the point of asking them in morning and afternoon sessions. At this point in time, right now, the EIDL, there's no definite time frame in which we would see disbursements, full disbursements, and loans. And at the same time, too, the opening of the EIDL application process, the portal. As a result of this new law that was enacted a day or so ago, policymakers in Washington are having to make some changes within our policy and procedures for the EIDL purposes, not necessarily for PPP. PPP is in place now and it's been operating. So we expect to hear from our disaster office in there, hopefully within a day or two, relative to that question.
Okay, so the next part of the second part of this question is if we get declined the rest of the EIDL, will we need to pay back the immediate funds? For the loan advance, no, you don't have to pay back that loan advances that you receive. Okay, next question. Can we retro pay our employee once our PPP get approved?
No.
It's moving forward, so no, you cannot retro pay your staff. What happened if you have Guam NG employee activated and not on payroll until September or possibly later?
If you have a National Guard representative, again, you have to count that as an employee. So if the employee doesn't come back to roll, then you can't pay the employee. That's, I guess, just a simple question. You can't pay an employee that's coming back. You can't go there and say, okay, we're gonna, because you went on deployment, that we have to pay you a salary. Again, that may be an issue that you may want to raise with the Labor Department as to what the provisions are there, because any National Guard or reservist that goes on military orders is protected by USERRA. But then again, that depends on the time that they are actually employed. So again, that's a matter of Department of Labor's discussion.
Next question, how is this PPP program, how is this distributed? Do we have to show payroll receipt to pool the funds, or do they give us the total amount and then we provide receipt after? So I think, Ken, you kind of addressed that earlier on. It's one time, and that when the loan forgiveness portion comes out, you just need to give them documentation to ask for the loan forgiveness portion. Correct?
Well, you kind of highlighted it earlier, Jane, by saying that the application has to be completed, and part of the package requirements in applying for the program, you must demonstrate that you had payroll records, prior to February 15th, and at the same time too, you must demonstrate you're paying rent and or mortgage interest and utilities and so forth. In other words, if you're applying for a certain loan dollar amount, then you have to demonstrate that you've actually achieve those dollar amounts. We've had some inquiries saying, can I add on another $5,000-$10,000 for inventory financing? Again, that's not the intent purpose of the program. It's strictly just to try to get people back in place, employed, so that way they can be a contributor to the community and help the economy, sustain itself. And so going back to it, you must have all the documentations in place before actually an application is being processed.
Okay, so please explain for those that have an existing loan. I'm assuming an existing SBA loan with the lenders. Are we able to have 6 months of our loan cover under this program outside the EIDL loan? What program? Is it the PPP or?
I think for the existing loan, right, wouldn't that have to be under the other program where they're going to defer?
Yeah, so you need to be, like I said, you need to be on regular servicing status. So you need to confirm with the bank that you have the loan with and making sure that your loan is automatic defer. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can assist. Ken, you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would say that whoever the creditor is, I would go back to the creditor. I'd be the student loan program or the commercial loan program, or even a federally backed guarantee program. Go back to the institution that you actually receive the credit from, and look at what their provisions are in terms of disaster relief, and discuss with them. It'd be best that you have a discussion with them and see if you qualify or you are one of the recipients of a deferment. But you would have to again engage with the institution that you got the credit from, and make arrangements accordingly.
Okay, so yeah, so you do need to work with the lender to find out whether you qualify or not. If we are corporation business, can we still apply for EIDL? We are C Corp, disabled veteran small business. So it would be yes, you can apply as long as you are for profit.
Yep.
Okay, somebody asked. Okay, so somebody asked about 501c6 again. It was addressed on Guam. Has distribution started for PPP loan for Guam? Yes, we have clients that have been dispersed and the lender are moving along with approval and disbursement. For PPP, what qualified to be used expenses paid from February 15, 2020 moving forward? For PPP, what qualifies to be used expense paid from February 15, 2020 moving forward?
Well, it should be from the point you received the funds, right?
Yeah, so it's the 8 weeks after the disbursement of the loan.
I would qualify by saying that expenses, we first look at the expenses that were incurred prior to February 15th. Obviously you're going to have other expenses after that time frame, but those expenses after that time frame are not considered normal operational expenses. And so we're wanting to put you back to normal operation expenses. So if you were operating rent, utilities, and so forth prior to February 15th, but then yet you have a difficult time with other expenses afterwards, we probably cannot cover those costs. We'd have to again look at what your normal operating cost was prior to February 15th.
If the PPP is a first come first served basis, why are applicant being processed first when I know I submitted my application before them and they have been contacted by the lender and I have not received a phone call from a lender? So a lot of people, this is my advice for those individuals. If you have submitted your application, you have not been contacted, you need to contact your bank. Have you completed your application? Is that maybe they sent you an email to follow up? If you didn't provide the document that the lender is asking, that's the reason why other people is getting approved. So please contact the lender and follow up on your application. I mean, I don't say to call them every day. They are busy. They are processing hundreds of applications every day. But if you need to follow up because you haven't heard from them, please do so.
Maybe I can just interject one thing on that. You have to keep in mind, like Jane is saying, the lender's usually contacting through email and giving a list of items that are still needed that you maybe weren't known to be submitted up front. So some of those could be like a payroll journal, a business license, things like this. So just be aware that the lender may be seeking additional documentation that you weren't probably aware of up front. So
Okay,
that's
so
something that might be slowing it down.
Okay, I'm skipping some of the question that was already answered. If some of the employee resign, can we hire another employee to replace them to keep the number of employee the same? Ken?
Answer is yes. But of course, anything above the numbers that you had prior to February 15th, again, we can't cover it because again, that's you're rehiring people beyond. Again, if you had a staff of 10 before February 15th and you retain 5, you can rehire 5 more. That could be the case. But if you want to hire 10, we can again only cover, forgive 10 up to 10 employees because it occurred, prior to February 15th.
Okay, next question. Is interest on loan other than mortgage loan eligible for forgiveness under the PPP program? And is accrual rather than pay interest available for forgiveness?
The answer is no. Anything other than mortgage interest, the answer is no. So we cannot, again, go back and pay off any existing debt obligations you may have with the creditor. I'd be consumer debt or commercial debt or personal debt. We can't do that. We can only cover the cost of mortgages.
Okay, so just to clarify, the mortgage interest is for your commercial location, right? If you took out a loan with your commercial lender to purchase the building that you're in, that is mortgage interest we're talking about. Like Ken mentioned, we're not talking about if I get an equipment loan, can I get that interest? No, that's not what's that for. It's related to the location that you are at. When and how can we apply for a SB loan beside the when and how can we apply for a SB loan beside just the 10,000 EIDL? We need more funding, that's why. Okay, so to clarify, when you apply for that loan advance, you automatically apply for the EIDL. The EIDL is up to $2 million. So you just need to wait for the loan officer to get in contact with you from SBA, they call it loan specialist. When they contact you, you will need to submit the additional information to qualify more than the loan advance that you are asking for. When do we find out if we got approved for PPP second round? It's your lender. You need to contact your lender and kind of follow up with them and see whether your loan has been approved. What if an employee was earning a salary lower in February, but because of the lockdown compensation and duty has to be revised and is earning more before the PPP was dispersed? Is all the individual salary forgivable?
Anything above and beyond the salary levels that were first indicated prior to February 15th is only acceptable. If you wish to give someone a raise in the interim, that is something that probably would not be covered. Again, we're only covering the cost of payroll costs prior to February 15th.
Okay. Can we apply for both EIDL and PPP? Can?
Yes.
You cannot just use it for the same purpose. So if you're using it to pay the same expenses that you already pay with the other loan, you cannot do that. No double dipping. Where can we get rules and regulation for unemployment? Unemployment assistance, that's with Guam Department of Labor. They are still waiting for U.S. Treasury and USDOL to approve their regulation and the rules and the regulation. In terms of the PPP, you can find the information, the SOP on SBA.gov website. You can also find the PPP regulation on the U.S. Treasury website. Those information is available for you to download and read. If your employee are currently working, however, they are working very few hours, how do you handle PPP funds if you receive your funds in the middle of your payroll week?
How the best way to explain it is that we are looking at an 8-week period of time. So assuming that you are in your you are in the middle part of your pay period, then you've got 1 week left in your pay period. That would constitute the first week of the 8 weeks. Then next pay period, you got 2 weeks after that. Next pay period, you got 2 weeks after that. And the third pay period, you got 2 weeks after that, totaling 7 pay periods altogether, which would include your last pay period, final week into another half of the pay period. So regardless of how many pay periods you begin with or where you start, you got to look at it from a weekly basis. How much money did you pay per week? And you have to justify that 8 weeks of payments that you pay for your employees at that point in time.
Okay, if there is any forgiveness on any of these loans, is it taxable for income tax purposes?
I'll let Fred answer that. He's a tax man.
No, it's not.
Okay. PPP, the loan is 215% of payroll. Can we use the entire loan for payroll? Or do we have to use the extra for rent to qualify for it to be forgivable? I'm thinking to get everyone back on normal hour plus some instead of using some of it for rent.
Yeah, the regulation says of the total amount provided, 75% must go to payroll. So if you exceed 75%, you're in good shape in getting it forgiven.
Okay. So that's the last question in the chat box.
I think can I just add on to that? The 250%, it's not like you're getting 250% additional amount of your payroll. The 250% represents the 8 weeks. So yes, it should be a normal payroll process for the 8 weeks. It's not additional funds. Because like Ken said, they're looking back to what that normal payroll was and then projecting forward for those 8 weeks what it should be.
Okay, so that we wrap up our presentation. Ms. Catherine, back to you at the chamber.
Thank you very much to Jane and Fred and Ken. We really appreciate your time and answering our questions and providing this much needed information for our small businesses. I also wanted to let the folks that are still online know that the Department of Labor is doing a webinar in conjunction with the Guam Visitors Bureau, and that is scheduled for this Friday, May 1st from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's a 2-hour session, so it's going to begin with some industry updates. It's going to include updates from the Bureau, from GHRA, and from the Chamber. Then it'll feature the Department of Labor's Director, Dave De La Sola. So if you're interested, and if you probably should have received an invitation. If you haven't, please feel free to contact the Guam Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be happy to send you the link so that you can participate in this webinar. You can contact me at castro@guamchamber.com.gu, or you can also direct your inquiry to info. And lastly, the Chamber also has a webinar at 10 o'clock on Friday as well, and it's with some member attorneys, Vincent Camacho and Meredith Sayer, and they're gonna talk to businesses about furloughs and layoff related issues, as well as the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. So if you're interested and if you're wanting to help prepare your companies and your employees for the eventual return to work, we are encouraging you to participate in this one as well. So thanks again so much to Jane and Fred and Ken. We appreciate you, and thanks everybody for participating in our presentation today. We look forward to seeing you again at the next webinar. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.